Hey y'all, it's Dawn, and I'm so glad you're back. I've got another fun, budget-friendly DIY video for you today. For this Wayfair-inspired dupe, I used a Dollar Tree windmill, a couple of dowels, a scrap piece of wood, and some paint. Somehow I lost this part of the video, but the hardest part of this entire project was getting the welcome off of the windmill. It was a fight, but eventually I won. I used a ruler and marked where I wanted to drill my holes in the scrap wood for the two dowels. The holes had to be at an angle so I could make the legs of the windmill turn in towards the windmill. I placed a piece of wood under the wood I was drilling so I wouldn't drill a hole in my desk, and held the wood, angling the drill a bit. I placed the dowels in the holes to make sure everything was going to line up the way I had it in my head, and placed a dab of hot glue into each hole with the dowel. I held the dowels at the angle I was needing until the hot glue had time to set up. I turned the piece over and placed another dab of hot glue in the holes at the bottom, and removed the excess glue that seeped out with a razor blade. I painted the dowels with folk art brushed black metallic paint, being careful not to get it on the bottom piece of wood. And for me, this was pretty tricky because I usually get paint everywhere. I then painted the Dollar Tree windmill with folk art brushed silver. Once the brushed silver was dry, I dry brushed some brushed black onto the ends of the windmill. Now it's time to assemble it and see if it turns out the way it is in my head. I placed the dowels on both sides of the little metal piece on the back of the windmill and applied a generous amount of hot glue to hold it. Now that was pretty simple. Wayfair has this windmill for $60. I duped it for less than $2. Me personally, I would rather have my high-end dupe than spend $60. What about you? I used 6 Dollar Tree wood blocks, a ruler, and a pencil. I found the center of each block by placing the ruler from corner to corner and placing a light mark with the pencil. Once all 6 blocks were marked, I used my drill and a large drill bit to drill a hole through each of the blocks. I placed a scrap piece of wood under the block so my drill bit wouldn't drill into my desk. I used a finger sander and sanded each of the blocks. I wanted to remove all the little spurs after I drilled the holes. I painted each of the blocks with Waverly ink chalk paint. Once the blocks were dry, I placed a piece of tape at the end of some twine. I did this so the twine would be easier to string through the blocks. I began by stringing one 25mm bead onto the twine, then a block 2mm beads, and I continued this pattern until I reached the end. I tied the ends of the twine so the beads and blocks would stay on, leaving a little space so the twine could move. Using my Cricut and some tan vinyl, I cut out the word family and applied the vinyl to the blocks. I applied a layer of satin Mod Podge to the blocks to seal and protect them. This is the Kirkland's image that I was duping. And this is mine. I think it turned out perfect, and it cost me $6 compared to $25. And who doesn't like to save money? I took a Dollar Tree paperback book and some cardstock to recreate a cute Wayfair faux book. I placed the book on the cream cardstock and marked where I wanted to cut it with a pencil. I placed the cardstock in this cutter I had gotten from Walmart. The paper was a little longer than the cutter, so I had to make a couple of cuts. After cutting, I placed the book back onto the cardstock and began folding the cardstock around the book. I used a glue stick to attach the cardstock. Once I had the cream book cover attached, it was time for the white portion. For the white, I didn't want it going around the entire book. I just wanted it to cover the spine and a little bit over it. I measured, folded, and cut the white cardstock down and attached it to the book with the glue stick. I applied a thin layer of surface wax to the book cover and used this Chalk Couture milk jug stencil for the front of the book. The stencil was a little larger than the cream area of the book, so I simply placed a piece of painter's tape across the area I didn't want to get any paste on. I used Chalk Couture Storm chalk paste and applied it to the stencil. Remove the painter's tape and the stencil. And wow, just look at how amazing. This is the Wayfair book I was duping. And this is mine. I actually think I like mine more. It turned out so amazing and high-end looking, and it only cost me maybe $3 at the most. And $3 is so much better than $60. Let me know what you think in the comments. Today's video is part of the High-End Dupes collab hosted by Devin at Freckled Mom DIY, and the co-host is the Crafty Quinn. You will find links to both of their channels, along with a link to the playlist in the description. Be sure to check everyone's videos out to find a few high-end dupes you may want to try for yourself. And now, back to some more high-end dupes. I found this plaque in my stash and used 4 full-size Jenga blocks. I glued the Jenga blocks onto the bottom of the plaque using Dollar Tree wood glue and hot glue. I also used a ruler to make sure the legs were lined up. The wood was too new looking to me, so I used a scraper and a paint can opener and banged them on the wood. I was looking to get little holes and indentions in the wood to make it appear older. I wanted a light stained look on the wood. I mixed up water and Waverly hazelnut chalk paint first. But after I applied it, I didn't like it at all. So I added some Waverly antiquing wax to more water. I applied it to the wood and dried it with my heat gun. I continued adding the watered down antiquing wax until I was happy with the color. This is the Kirkland's mini bench I was duping. And this is my dupe. Let me know what you think in the comments below. For this dupe, I needed a short block and a longer block. I used 2 Dollar Tree wood blocks and glued them together with Dollar Tree wood glue. I then used a wood clamp to hold them together until the glue had time to set up. I didn't want the block to look like it had been glued together, so I applied a layer of Dollar Tree spackling using my fingers and a scraper. And guys, I am really sorry about my voice. I set the block to the side to dry. While I waited, I painted the single block with Folk Art Java paint. I had picked up these little bluebirds from Dollar General last year. I painted them both with Folk Art Fresh Granite terracotta paint, making sure none of the blue was showing through. But of course, I wasn't worried about the bottom of the birds since I was going to be using glue on them. I hot glued the bird to the block. I unclamped the 2 blocks and sanded them and cleaned them with a baby wipe. Painted them just like the first block with the Java chalk paint and glued the bird to the top. Pottery Barn has these little bird statues ranging from $19 to $69. I was able to dupe it for less than $5. And I think they turned out so stinking cute. I had these thrifted letters in my stash and purchased a pack of these adorable cow heads from Amazon. I wanted to recreate a Wayfair sign. I painted the H with Folk Art Java chalk paint, making sure I got all the sides. I didn't want any of the MDF board showing. I moved the H out of the way to let it dry and painted both the E and the cow with Waverly white chalk paint. Moved them out of the way to dry and painted the M with Folk Art Aqua acrylic paint. I wanted to give the letters a little more character, so I dry brushed the H with Waverly white, the E and the cow with Folk Art Java, and finally the M with Folk Art Java. Now to put the sign together. I used craft sticks and cut them down so they wouldn't be seen. I hot glued them to hold the letters together. I also hot glued the cow to the H and the M. I was hoping the sign would stand on its own, but it just wasn't wide enough. So I hot glued a couple of tumbling tower blocks on the back. And oh my God, can we all say so stinking cute? The Wayfair home sign is on sale for $53. Mine didn't cost me a thing since everything I used was already in my stash. In my opinion, free beats $53. And honestly, I think mine is so much cuter. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please take a second to like this video and leave me a comment. This really helps my channel to grow so others just like yourself can find me. If you just found me, I hope you will join our little family by hitting the subscribe button. If you are already part of the family, thank you so much for your love and support. Y'all are the absolute best. Check out my new Amazon store for craft supply and farmhouse home decor recommendations. All the products I use from Amazon in my videos can be found there. Until next time, happy crafting!